Watch me! Watch me! I got it.
There's something about this song that just brings out.
I'll tell you, I remember seeing James Brown on Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
And my brother and I kind of went nuts and got all sweaty and wouldn't stop moving our feet around. My mom had to finally turn
You
the
still
TV
get that
off.
move going.
It makes me crazy.
Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole.
him.
You're listening to Home Wizards and, of course, little James Brown,
Yeah, of
too.
course.
And, I was out shopping for paint last weekend. I was looking for chalkboard paint. I'm still on my quest.
Yes, and you were looking for spray chalkboard, and I don't think it's
well,
made.
I found it online.
You did?
I found some online, and so I think that I will be able to find my chalkboard paint. But it made me think, you know what? What do you need to think about before you go out on your mission to buy paint? Because you might hear us say, hey, it's the easiest thing to do, just change some color and you can change. But, you can't just go out and buy paint. You have to
No.
have your ducks in a row.
Yes, you do. And
So
you have to determine not only color, but you have to determine quality.
Your space that you're going to be using.
Yes, the amount. How much am I going to have to buy of this stuff? You don't want to overbuy a color that you're not going to use in a different room because then it's just a waste of paint.
Mm-hmm.
So there's specific calculations on
Is
how
it
to figure that
inside or
out.
outside? What are the
Exterior,
elements?
interior. What gloss do you want? You want semi-matte. You want to have something that's washable and easy. There are also now paints that are primer and paint in one.
There's
so
a
that
lot to
saves
think
a step.
about.
I know.
I'm almost exhausted. That's
now
a lot.
and the tools to apply
Oh,
the paint.
geez.
I know.
Okay, but we want to break it down and make it
Break it
easy.
down.
Because it can be and is easy. And, of course, there's the architectural details against the rest of the house
That's
to
right.
create the flow.
That's it. Yeah, from
There's
one
a
color
lot
to
of
another.
think about.
right?
All right, so let's kind of make it really simple. First,
Sure.
inside or out, what are we considering for our paint purchase?
So obviously for interior paint, meaning things that you're going to colors that's going to be applied to the inside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Interior paint is what you want. Do you want is it a bathroom? If it's a bathroom, you're going to want to consider something that has a slight gloss to it, because what will happen if you don't is that you'll get runs in the paint from the moisture, and you'll see it. It'll take too long to dry, and it always looks like there's splotching or a running of the paint. So I recommend usually in bathrooms to get either a semi-gloss or an eggshell at the very least. And then anything flat you never want to do in a bathroom because it'll just look bad.
So any high traffic area, any high moisture area,
Absolutely,
right?
yes, that's right. And then that applies to kitchens as well, because you're going to have, food splatter, you're going to have things boiling over, anytime that you have that scenario, especially too with kids, something that's easy to clean. So again, eggshell all the way up to gloss is recommended for kitchens. Again, it's a high traffic area. Same holds true for a laundry or mudroom area.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely want to have a slight gloss to that wall as well, because kids are going to be kicking off muddy boots and you want to be able to wipe the wall down. So whenever it comes to those types of rooms, you definitely want to consider those glosses.
And if you're painting outside?
Exterior paint, it's going to have the ability to withstand sun more, for a longer period of time, because that's the downfall of paint outside, is that the weather conditions hit it. You get the bright sun, you get the heat, you get the variance in temperatures, very extreme. So you definitely want to have an exterior paint for that. You don't want to skimp on that. And exterior paint's a little more expensive, but the quality's higher. It'll last longer outside.
And for exterior paint, do you need to have as many coats as you do interior paint, or more?
Well, generally, you're going to do primer on any bare wood or glossy surface to cover again, and then 2 coats are recommended always. So for any paint application, you definitely want to do 2 coats if you can. I mean, that's definitely the way the color is going to feel the most depthful, and you're going to have even coverage. You won't see any streaking. So always do 2 coats.
And if you are back to the inside, you hear about how flat paint will hide imperfections. And
the reason being is that it's not picking up light refraction, and you're not seeing divots. And that's when you see the imperfections in walls. You're going to see shadowing. And that's what happens when you have a glossy wall. You're going to see every little detail because light is hitting those angles, and it's reflecting, and you're seeing all the little imperfections. With flat paint, you can basically sometimes not even patch walls, and you barely read that there's a hole in the wall. So that's why you would use flat versus a gloss.
Okay. Boy.
Yeah.
And gloss really is tough, I guess, in terms of... for casings and shutters, you'd want to have that beautiful glossy look, right?
Right. And you definitely want to have, again, gloss on those casings and shutters and trims, because your vacuum cleaner is going to hit it when you're cleaning up, or when you're walking through the house, you might hit the baseboards, and shutters are high use, high traffic. You're always touching them, and it's easy to wipe fingerprints off of a glossy surface. So that's why you're going to definitely do that. And also, gloss looks great as a trim because it really pops. And
Yeah.
the light hits it, and it becomes a frame for the color on the wall.
Molding and all that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
I love that
So
look.
you definitely want to do that.
Okay.
Water-based versus oil.
Uh-huh.
We're kind of phasing out of oil
We are,
completely.
aren't we?
Yeah,
It's almost like you can't find it.
Exactly. It's like, I got a quart of oil. You're going to meet me in the parking lot in a different county. Like, you can
Right.
actually buy different products from different counties that don't have the same restrictions. A lot of flooring guys and a lot of painters and finishers literally have to drive to different parts of the state to get stuff that's no longer legal in your town,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of not a great thing to do, because there's off-gassing, the reason being, and there's a lot of toxicity to some of these older products, especially with lead-based paints from years ago. The paint lasted longer, but it also, makes you not as intelligent if you're working around this stuff. It kills brain cells, and literally that's why the kids have had such problems developmentally, because lead-based paints create less intelligence in a human being. So you definitely don't want to have a crisp, clean, beautiful house that looks great.
So that's
but your
why
kid
my
can't
SATs
add.
were so good. I get okay. I
Exactly.
blame on the paint.
Yeah, exactly.
So the type of paint you use really should be your first decision, because it could also restrict the color palette
That's
that
right.
you end up using.
That's exactly
right.
right. Some glosses don't work with some colors. Like, for example, a high gloss red paint is one of the most difficult surfaces to cover. And the only way around it is to tint the primers with red tint, so that you have to do far fewer coats. But if you're trying to paint a gloss red over a door and it's not primed appropriately, it literally will take 5 coats before it even looks sort of okay. So you definitely want to make sure that you're aware of that before you get into specific colors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But even if you have the paint plus primer type,
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a better way to go. But a lot of pro guys don't like the combined product of paint and primer, because you can't sand out a primer coat to get it perfectly
less
smooth.
control.
There's less control, exactly. But for a homeowner and a DIYer, boy, that paint and primer in one is great, because it literally cuts 2 steps out of the process.
Do we need to do some investigating and actually scrape what's already on our wall? Does that help in terms of how the paint that we put on will adhere to it? Do we need
Sure.
to take some of the crumbs and take that to the hardware store and say, here, can you analyze this? This is what currently was on the wall, if you don't have the can of the paint.
Sure, you can do that. I mean, if you're doing color matching, you can literally take a nickel-sized chip from your wall, and they can match it pretty effectively using the computer matching system. As far as what's already on the wall, whenever you paint, if there's dust or grime, you're going to want to wash the wall down with some TSP to, again, degrease the wall and make it receptive to the new coat of paint. If it's a gloss surface, you're going to want to sand it lightly and then wipe that down so that the paint will adhere to that. You want to do primer first and then paint, and then you're guaranteed great adhesion. So if you've ever had the experience of painting a gloss over a gloss, you can literally peel it off in sheets, because it just
Really?
doesn't stick, right? So you definitely want to always, degloss surfaces before you put another gloss on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of how much paint, I mean, there are a lot of these online calculators to figure out how much paint to buy, in terms
Yeah.
of the room size or the entire home size or the wall. Is there kind of a tried and true formula that
Yeah,
we can...
the manufacturer will always have a recommended amount, and just follow that. And to find square footage of a wall, you're going to go the floor run, from left to right, and then from top to bottom, and multiply those 2 numbers, and then you get your square footage, and then you multiply that times 2, because you want to do 2 coats.
Okay, there you go.
That's it. Yeah.
Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole, we have this all on the website, yourhomewizards.com. And remember this, until next time, the key is under the mat. Bye-bye.
I'll light the fire while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.